Bonjour mes amis, je suis l'illogical Canadien and welcome back to another video. Today we're reading chapters 9 and 10 of the book All You Can Do Is Pray by James Spann. So just to quickly go over the chapters again, we are now a third of the way through the book. Chapter 1 was how he got into meteorology. Chapter 2 was the Forgotten Outbreak. Chapter 3 was the morning round of storms during that day. Chapter 4 was the aftermath of that morning convection. Chapter 5 was the Coleman, Alabama tornado. Chapter 6 was the escalation. Chapter 7 was the escalate. Chapter 7 was the climax and the de-escalation. Chapter 8 was the aftermath. And now in chapters 9 and 10, we are going to be getting into some of the stories. And there's going to be a good amount of them. So this is where the stories from the survivors start. And I should note, so just to quickly announce, Discord is up and running. Link will be in the description, as well as the giveaway for Nitro. The person who makes me the best profile picture and or banner will win Nitro in some way, shape, or form. Either Nitro or Nitro Classic. I'm still working on that with my moderator. And again, those will be in the description below. So do feel free to join and come on in, because you can actually win something. All right. So without further ado, let's get to the first story. Before I read it, I'll just show you the image now. Okay, this is the first image right here. This was a family, and you'll see why I showed you that picture in a minute. Keep in mind, I won't show you all the pictures. Just for right now, those are the only 3 pictures in the book. I'm trying the best that I can to share the most that I can. So bear with me. Chapter 9. 7 family members in the basement. 6 survived. In April 2011, Carrie Lowe and her husband, Josh, were new parents living in Pleasant Grove. Their son, Tucker, was born in March, and Carrie was on maternity leave from her job as an emergency room nurse at St. Vincent's East. Carrie's brother, Kurt Greer, and his wife, Crystal, lived just a couple of miles away, also in Pleasant Grove. Crystal describes Carrie as a person that loved everybody, was a friend to all, and didn't have one enemy. She loved to help people. In the picture I showed you, by the way, that was Carrie, Josh Lowe, with their son. That was the picture that I showed you just a little bit ago. Carrie also paid close attention to the weather, especially when severe thunderstorms were forecast. Her last post on Twitter, 1 week before the big tornado outbreak on April 20th, 2011, showed concern over getting the warnings that day due to a power outage. And the tweet reads, and I'll read the tweet. It shows, "I hate bad weather. Hope someone warns me to go to my safe place if I need to, because the power is out, so I can't watch James Spann. Sad face." Kurt says Carrie had been afraid of tornadoes since she was a little girl. She had been talking about the April 27th threat for several days. The event was well forecast, and she paid close attention. The warning on the storms April 27th knocked out the power out of school in Bessemer, where Crystal's 5-year-old daughter, Rachel, attended. Since Rachel was out of school, Crystal, her 10-month-old son, Jacob, and Rachel went shopping. Upon returning to their home, Crystal realized she locked herself out of the house. Knowing that Carrie had a spare key, Crystal called her for help. Carrie wasn't home, but was out with Josh about to eat lunch in Bessemer. One tried to wait. They came right back to Pleasant Grove to let Crystal in. It was about that time that Kurt got home. He worked for Birmingham Fire Rescue. We all decided to have a late lunch together and headed for Speedy's in Hueytown, a great little Mexican restaurant. The one significant severe weather threat that was ahead during the late afternoon and evening hours, Crystal invited Carrie, Josh, and Tucker over to their home so they could ride out the storms together. Carrie and Josh lived in a one-level house. Crystal and Kurt had a basement, which was partially finished. It was similarly offered better protection. Just so you know, I just say before I continue on, there are going to be featured some addresses on here, but I want to make this clear. The addresses were in the book, and there's a good chance that these places don't exist anymore. If by chance that they do, For the love of God, do not, and I mean do not, do anything. Just leave it alone and just listen to the book as is. Kurt had a basement which was partially finished. It was seemingly offered better protection at 1320 of 12th Street. Early in the week, Carrie's mom encouraged that the Lowe family to run up the stones of their home in Hayden, but Carrie assured they would be safe at Crystal's house with the basement. At the Greer house, they turned on the television and watched ABC 3340's live coverage of the devastating tornado that was moving through Tuscaloosa shortly after 5 p.m. As the storm neared the western suburbs of Birmingham, including Pleasant Grove, rain intensities increased, and the satellite signal was lost at the Greer home. At that time, Carrie encouraged everyone to get to the basement, knowing what was to come. She put her baby, Tucker, in his car seat, and all 7 people went down the stairs and into the basement. Carrie asked Crystal if she had her purse, and that didn't make sense to Crystal, but Carrie said it would be helpful if she needed to be identified. Again, it seemed senseless to Crystal, especially since she really didn't think a tornado was coming. Carrie opted to go into the part of the basement which is under the porch of the home, not the finished part of the basement, which featured a couch and other amenities. The other family members followed her into that long but smaller space, with Carrie's son Tucker safe in the car seat. She offered to hold Crystal's son Jacob. After only about 5 minutes, the roaring noise of the wind picked up, and while Crystal's mom called to check on her, the roar got louder and louder, and just as Crystal told her mom, "It's right on top of us," the phone went silent and the connection was dropped. I'm going to show you the picture real quick. This is the tornado right here that moved through Pleasant Grove. It was that behemoth there. With all 7 family members standing in that part of the basement under the porch, a violent EF4 tornado passed overhead. Large pieces of concrete started falling on top of them as the structure above disintegrated. All this happened during a few seconds of nature's violence that cannot be adequately described by those that experienced it. When it was over, Crystal and Kurt were uninjured, but they were under pieces of concrete block. Kurt cleared the debris and they saw Josh, who was knocked down but not seriously injured. But at the point, they could not see Carrie or the 3 kids. Kurt started yelling out their names, and there was no response. Nothing. Crystal, Kurt, and Josh feared the worst. The long slab of concrete that had been the ceiling of the portion of the basement fell and broke into a few large pieces. One came down over Carrie and Jacob. Rachel and Tucker in the car seat were adjacent to the other 3 in the basement. And this is the photo of that concrete slab right there. It's huge. Kurt, a trained firefighter, was able to get behind the large concrete slab and saw Carrie's arm. He immediately felt her pulse and knew his sister was gone. And from all evidence, she died while covering and protecting Jacob. As Kurt called out for Jacob, the 10-month-old child crawled out, and despite having a skull fracture, Kurt picked up Jacob and handed him to Crystal. Then Kurt started working to find out the condition of Rachel and Tucker, who was in the car seat. Another large chunk of concrete had fallen on top of them both. Kurt was able to determine the baby survived in that car seat, but there was a considerable amount of debris in his mouth. Kurt was able to reach around the slab and clear the baby's mouth to be sure he was able to breathe normally. Rachel started screaming, asking someone to get the large piece of concrete off her. While terrifying, the screams gave everyone some level of comfort knowing she was alive. By this time, neighbors, ordinary people who did extraordinary things that horrible night, showed up to help. It would take first responders and a considerable amount of time to reach the house because of all the downed trees, debris, and live power lines. At least 10 men from the street tried their best to lift the large concrete slab off of Carrie and Rachel with no luck. It was just too heavy. For the neighbors who still had homes, they rushed back to get jacks out of their cars. It worked. About 6 stomach jams were enough to pull under the big slab and was slowly starting to rise, allowing for Rachel to be rescued. Rachel had head injuries, but she was alert and talking. Kurt knew that the 3 children needed medical attention, and there was no telling how long it could take for paramedics to arrive. And their cars were taken up by the tornado, so a neighbor handed them her keys and told them where to find her car. It was located at the end of 12th Street that was untouched by the tornado. Kurt and Crystal carried Rachel and Jacob. A neighbor carried Tucker, as Josh stayed behind with Carrie. Unfortunately, the car didn't offer much help. Downed trees had roads blocked, and there was simply no passage until the chainsaw crews arrived. They started walking again. Then a neighbor on the golf cart offered a ride, but that again didn't last long due to fallen trees. After another long walk, they found a police officer that gave them a ride down to one of the local fire stations, where a triage setup had been established. From there, the children were transported to Children's Hospital of Alabama. Back at 1320 12th Street, the volunteers were finally able to get a concrete slab of Carrie. Chris Coleman, who was a nurse at Children's of Alabama, was determined to save Carrie's life. She performed CPR her for an extended amount of time. Unfortunately, Carrie passed away from her injuries. The irony in all this was that Carrie and Josh's home were not damaged at all. Crystal and Kurt opted not to rebuild in Pleasant Grove. They moved to Blount County after the tornado. Josh and Tucker moved in with the Greer family for a couple of years. Crystal quit her job temporarily so she could take care of the kids. Josh remarried and has added 2 more children to his growing family. Jacob's skull fractures healed on their own. Rachel suffered a brachial plexus injury, leaving her arm paralyzed. Crystal and Kurt were told she had one nerve working in her arm, from her neck to her fingers, and would need surgery that would only give her 60% use. One Sunday, about 3 months after the tornado, the Greer's pastor called her up for a prayer in church and anointed her with oil. She regained full use of her arm about a week later and still has no issues to this day. The medical team called it a miracle. Carrie's 7-week-old baby, Tucker, is now 10 years old. When he was 18 months old, he was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder, tetrasomy 9p, but he has thriving. Real quick, before I continue, just real quick, tetrasomy 9p it's kind of like on the autism spectrum, but it's kind of like its own thing, but it's somewhat a part of it. I don't know how much to explain it. If you want to know more about it, just do research. It'll be on Google or whatever. But he is thriving. Crystal and Kurt had another son the next year, Ethan Lee. The nurse that performed CPR on Carrie, trying to save her life, told Crystal her son's name was Ethan. Ethan and his friends joined hands the night of April 27 to pray over Carrie during the rescue. And Lee was Carrie's middle name. Ethan was born on January 23rd, 2012, almost 9 months to the day after the April 27th tornado outbreak. And there were tornadoes on that day. A pre-dawn tornado tore through Center Point in Clay, injuring 16 people. Through Center Point in Clay, killing 16-year-old Christina Heichelbeck and injuring 75. Kurt, a Birmingham firefighter, worked in that area. Crystal wasn't sure if he would make it in time for the birth, but he did. They called Ethan their tornado baby, and in the words of Crystal, he helped heal our family. And Crystal has what they call in the family tornado box, which is full of cards sent by friends and others. On April 27th, 2020, Crystal believed that Jacob, now 10, was old enough to hear the entire story on the horrible night 10 years ago. She read a number of articles to him and told him how Carrie protected him and saved his life. Joshua has remarried, and now Tucker has a brother and sister, Matthew and Harper. Reflecting back on April 27, 2011, Crystal remembered that long space under the porch and had a left and right side. Carrie led everyone into the right side that had something stored in it instead of the other side that was completely clear. If they had gone to the left side, it probably would have killed all 7 people because the slabs were bigger and didn't break up, like they did on the right side. It was like Carrie knew something the other family members didn't, and Crystal believed they are here today because of her. She just wishes Carrie could have saved herself as well. For Crystal, this night changed her life completely. For one, Carrie is not here. They were sisters-in-law. They are also best friends. They were supposed to live near each other for the rest of their lives and raise their kids together. When Carrie took Jacob from Crystal's arms and carried him downstairs, it was the last time the family saw her. The slap hit her was very large, and Crystal didn't see her before they got her out. Crystal says it feels like Miss left them with no closure. So many things remind Crystal of her, and that always brings her mind back to the last time they saw her. Carrie's mom passed away in 2019. These were the kinds of things their family wasn't supposed to experience without Carrie, just like every birthday, holiday, or celebration. Crystal is thankful to say the Lord has sustained them through it all. One of Carrie's favorite verses was Joshua 1:9, which read, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." To this day, Crystal and her family don't understand it all, but they know He is with us wherever we go. She used to think that meant wherever they physically went. Now she realizes it is also for grief, sorrow, and sadness. Wow. That was a hard one. Um, the fact that one person sacrificed her life to save the lives of the other six family members, that is like, wow. Like, it's like, if you're like sensitive to that kind of stuff, it's also like, it's not as easy, it's not as hard to get emotional about it. Like, it's easy to get emotional about that stuff because like, it's just horrible. It really is horrible. Oh wow! I just found a lot of words already, and that's the first story, and we got several more to go. Chapter 10: 3 lives spared, all else gone. For me, the foothills of the Appalachians in the northeast Alabama are a retreat. Clearly, one of the most beautiful parts of our state. It offers a stunning beauty year-round, especially during the fall when brilliant colors make the hillsides come alive. A winding drive down county roads, like country roads, in counties like Jackson, DeKalb, and Marshall is good for the soul. And it's only about 80 miles from Birmingham, but you feel like you are a million miles away. Nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama is the community of Bridgeport in Jackson County. The town was developed after the 1840s, when European Americans established a riverboat landing along the Tennessee River. A railroad bridge over the Tennessee River was completed in 1854, connecting the city with nearby Chattanooga, Tennessee. In recognition of its accomplishment, the name of the city was changed from Jonesville to Bridgeport. Holly Beasley, along with her husband Kevin and their 2-year-old son Talon, lived at 1921 County Road 255 in Bridgeport on April 27, 2011. Kevin and Talon were home, and Holly went to work in Scottsboro that morning at the attorney's office. Later in the day, the attorney that Holly worked for was leaving the office for the courthouse as he had a case scheduled in court. A line of storms was approaching, so he asked her to go with him to the courthouse so that she wouldn't be in the office alone. They knew this was a major severe weather threat not to be taken lightly. They walked out the front of the storm and entered his chambers. And after that, the storm passed. He told Holly to go home before the next round arrived. Holly was able to make it home and Talon was napping. They had satellite television service, which went off due to rain attenuation. Holly's mom called a few minutes before 5 to let her know meteorologists on Huntsville TV stations were watching a dangerous storm moving in the direction of Bridgeport. The storm was rotating and had intense velocity couplet developed on the radar, and a tornado warning was being issued for the northeast part of Jackson County. Again, I'm going to read the bulletin. If you want to skip ahead, skip ahead. If you want to see me suffer, then continue watching on. Bulletin. EES activation requested. Tornado warning. National Weather Service, Huntsville, Alabama. 5 p.m. Central Daylight Time was it April 27, 2011. The National Weather Service in Huntsville has issued a tornado warning for northeastern Jackson County in northeast Alabama until 5:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. At 4:57 p.m. Central Daylight Time, National Weather Service Doppler radar indicated a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near Hollywood, moving northeast at 75 miles per hour. Locations near the path of this tornado include Stevenson, Russell Q National Monument, Bridgeport. Take cover now, move to an interior room on the lowest floor of a sturdy building, avoid windows. If in a mobile home, a vehicle, or outdoors, move to the closest substantial shelter and protect yourself from flying debris. Holly woke Talon and put him in the bathtub of a few on top of a few pillows and only a t-shirt and diaper. Kevin pulled a mattress into the bathroom in case it became necessary to use the cover. Holly, in her pajamas and no shoes, was in the bathroom with Talon and yelled for Kevin to come as the wind was picking up. She couldn't hear him, so she left the bathroom and found him in the back door. On the way back to the bathroom, they looked out the front door and could see dark clouds swirling. Holly ran to the bathroom and prepared for the worst. Moments later, Kevin came running to the bathroom and pulled the mattress over the top of him just in time to hear the vinyl siding being ripped off their 3-year-old home. Holly remembers feeling the bathtub shifting side to side before she lost consciousness. Her first memory after the tornado was being in their yard, approximately 50 yards from where she was inside their home. Kevin was 6 feet to her left, and Talon was 6 feet to her right. She can vividly hear the sound of Talon saying, "Mommy, Mommy," over and over. With that sound, she gained a little relief just by hearing his voice and knowing he was alive. Kevin ran over and picked up as best he could while Holly lifted herself off the ground, nauseous and dizzy. Kevin quickly asked her if she was able to carry Talon because he could barely breathe and had severe pain in his chest and lower back. And they were able to walk to their neighbor's house, crossing over downed power lines and trees while wearing no shoes. The neighbor's home was also demolished, but they had taken cover in their basement, a move that caused them to receive no injuries and be able to help the Beasley family. Other neighbors who received no damage came to assist in getting him to the nearest home that was still intact. They carried Kevin into that house and laid him on a couch to hopefully get some relief from the pain. The ambulance couldn't get to them because of all the downed trees blocking the road. And our neighbors managed to get a pickup truck to the Beasley family and put couch cushions in the bed of the truck. They were able to get Kevin onto the cushions while Talon and Holly rode up front. They transported them to an ambulance or took them to Highlands Medical Center in Scottsboro, where they were operating on generators. Thankfully, Holly personally knew the security officer at the hospital. He was waiting for their arrival at the emergency room doors. He immediately let her know that they had already contacted her parents and let them know that they needed to get to the hospital. When her parents arrived, they didn't know what had happened. They had thought they were in a car accident because the tornado in Bridgeport hadn't been reported at the time. Many people today don't know anything about the EF4 in Bridgeport that almost took the lives of the Beasley family. However, that horrible night, it did take the life of a 13-year-old boy that lived across the street, Brandon Warren. Many tests were done on Holly, Kevin, and Talon. Holly was bruised from head to toe, but had no major injuries. Talon had a skull fracture and was quickly transferred to TC Johnson Children's Hospital in Chattanooga, as Highlands didn't have the necessary machinery to assess the severity of skull fracture due to the power outage. Thankfully, since Holly was without major issues, she was able to ride along with Talon from Scottsboro to Chattanooga. Her parents arrived to Chattanooga not long after them with a change of clothes. Changed clothes, hairbrush, and a pair of shoes for Holly. Once Talon was admitted and settled into the pediatric ICU room, Holly's mom stayed in the room with him, and she was able to take a bath in one of the occupied rooms and change out of the muddy clothes she was wearing. It was a difficult bath as she was so sore all over, and there was no hot water. She remembers all the dirt and grass that came out of her hair. Kevin sustained 2 fractured vertebrae and a fractured sternum. By the way, sternum is like right here. That's your sternum, right here. So he was unable to join them in Chattanooga, as he remained at Highlands to receive treatment. A few days later, they were all released in both hospitals and went to stay with a family who, without hesitation, gave them a place to live for a few months. The Beasley family was so thankful for the many friends and family who helped them get back on their feet. The outpouring of love and generosity was simply astonishing to them. After the storm and damage assessment, there was no piece of the bathtub left that they were in. Not a single piece of the California king-size bedroom suite, no kitchen appliances, no living room furniture, not one wall remaining. And their vehicles were totaled and thrown yards from where they were originally parked. An 18-wheeler was thrown from across the street into their yard, not far from their first home. Holly's engagement ring and Kevin's wallet were found in the cinder block where the foundation of their home had once stood. It took some time, but they all recovered. These days, storms have become a little easier to deal with, while high wind is something that still gets to the Beasley family. They may have lost all the material things they owned on a terrifying day, but their lives were spared. Everything else can be and was replaced. A week or so after April 27, 2011, there was a Facebook page created to find owners of items that fell from the sky and landed in people's yards across the deep south. One of Holly's friends saw a post with a photo of Holly and Talon, and ultimately the photos were returned to the family. This picture was taken when Talon was 4 months old. It was ripped from his baby book and landed in a yard 56 miles away in Pikeville, Tennessee. This is the right here. That was the picture that was found. In 2012, Kevin and Holly needed new family pictures since all the old ones were taken during the tornado. The decision was to go back to their old home site on County Road 255. It was their first time going back to the place where they almost lost their lives. They chose not to rebuild there. They didn't want to have to look at the area every day and be constantly reminded of what happened. Holly still sometimes wonders why us. There have been many great things that have happened to the family since the horrific day in 2011, and also obstacles to this terrifying day that have given them the strength to overcome. The past 10 years have allowed Talon to grow up and become a smart, handsome young man, and also allowed Holly and Kevin to add a little girl to their family. Tenley Kate was born on January 21st, 2019. And Talon is 12 years old now, and he is kind, loving, and thoughtful. He wants to be an anesthesiologist when he grows up. Holly and Kevin are hopeful that one day his life being spared on April 27, 2011 will allow his kind, nurturing spirit to be used for an amazing purpose, however God sees fit. Kevin and Holly have since taken great jobs and have been very successful. Their children have everything they need and more. Most importantly, the children have their parents. On April 27, 2018, they finally made something positive out of April 27th. Kevin and Holly closed on and moved into their dream home in the Hollywood community of Jackson County, about 20 miles away from Bridgeport. Holly received a real estate license in April 2020. This is something she had wanted to do for a long time. She sold 6 homes in her first 6 months, and loves seeing her clients' faces when they close on their dream homes. Holly says it's nice for her to be a part of such a special day in others' lives. She only hopes she can make a small difference in the lives of those around her. Another very emotionally powerful story, just the fact that their bathtub was picked up and tossed. Everyone was scattered. One person was here, another person was there, another one was right here. It's horrifying, and the fact that they lost everything seemingly, it's horrible. You don't even know what to expect. It's heartbreaking for anybody. Even as a reader or as a victim of one of these things, So I think I'll wrap it up for this episode. In the next episode, I'll be reading chapters 11 and 12. Again, a reminder, Discord and everything for the giveaway is in the description, so please do check it out. That would mean a lot. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you did enjoy it. If you didn't, leave a like, comment down below to see what you guys want to see next. If you have not done so already, subscribe to join the illogical army. Thank you guys for watching. As always, je suis l'illogique Canadien. Bonne nuit et au revoir. Oh, that's not what I wanted.